Let me tell you something, nerds. Today on Top 5 Tuesday, we are going to talk about something that is not always connected to what we normally talk about, but it is something that we both love, and that is pro wrestling. Today on Top 5 Tuesday, we are bringing you the top 5 most iconic, in our minds, wrestling moments of the last however long, forever, for our whole lives. 80s, 90s, 2000s, whatever. You'll get the point. Aha! It was me all along.
Oh, he must have lost the match.
Rip my headphones straight out of my head. It was me all along. It was the swerve, brother.
That's what I said. I said he must have lost the match.
I did, yes. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so like I said, this is not comic book related. This is not comic book movie related. But when you look at the pantheon of fandoms, you would be hard-pressed to find a more dedicated fandom than the pro wrestling fandom. Both of us grew up on pro wrestling. Both of us have enjoyed pro wrestling as adults, okay? May even have taken a bump or two in my day.
Yeah.
That's a story for another day.
In the ring.
Yes, in the ring, not just like I got mugged. Anyway, so we are going to run down each of our top 5 most iconic moments in our wrestling history. Starting with Jerry, number 5. What do you got?
I have Lita's debut. She came in a flash and a moonsault.
Yes.
It was one of those moments like, the luchador scene, especially in WWE, was just starting to really become pretty popular during that time period.
In WCW?
Yeah. And so she came out as a valet. And, at the time, valets just usually, look pretty. Maybe they occasionally threw a chair in or something, or,
especially then.
Yeah. Or maybe they, got the referee's attention so something dirty could happen. You never really saw them go hands-on with something, you know what I mean?
Right.
So to see her climb the ropes and, at the time I remember seeing it and just being like, what's she going to do? And the next thing you know, she just throws off this moonsault. And really for Lita, who I would say is questionable on her acting, but she has great skills when it comes to wrestling. And you actually got to watch her skill level build through her course of her career.
Right. Yeah, she, prior to being in WWE, she was in ECW. Her name was Angelica, I think. And when she came into WWE, a few fans knew who she was, but she hadn't really gotten to, showcase her in-ring skill, which is a shame because she was a very polished in-ring competitor. She had trained in Mexico, and she was brought in as a valet for S.A. Rios, who didn't last terribly long.
No.
But she did.
Yeah,
he sure did. And yeah, you're right. In a time frame where we had people like Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler who were there just as kind of like arm candy, she was like, nah, I'm just going to do backflips. And between her and Trish Stratus, you saw this kind of shift. And now when you watch these girls, most of them are very good in the ring.
Yeah, and Holly Dudley and, or Molly Dudley.
Molly Holly.
Yeah, Molly Holly, whatever it was. They actually built these franchises or these groups within it that you first, may saw D-Generation X or you saw, NWO, but they were building these extreme, and that's really what it was. It was the era of the extreme wrestling, right, where you saw, women putting men through tables and jumping off of ladders and doing Hurricane Ranas. And I mean, it was, right, to me, it was the pinnacle of wrestling.
It was very unexpected and very enjoyable.
Yeah.
So that's a relatively recent event for us, at least. I'm going to go way farther back for my number 5. My number 5 takes place in 1998, Survivor Series 1998, in the tag team match that they had, where they had 5 different tag teams on each side, and you had on one side the good guys, the Powers of Pain, and on the other side you had the dastardly Demolition with their manager, Mr. Fuji. And I always liked Demolition because of how they looked. They were like WWE's version of the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, right? So in this match, Mr. Fuji got hurt. Well, the Powers of Pain went to go check on him, which is not a heroic, I mean, I guess it's a heroic thing to do, but not the evil manager, right?
Yeah.
And then Mr. Fuji turned on Axe of Demolition, hit him with his cane, and it was a double turn, which you don't see in wrestling that much. You had the baby face Powers of Pain and the heel Demolition switch sides, and Demolition from that point on took off. And in 89, 90, 91, they were probably the hottest tag team in WWF at the time. And they were my favorites. I loved them. I didn't get to see NWA, so I didn't really get to see Legion of Doom as much as I wanted to. So Demolition was it for me.
Yeah.
And them turning into good guys was like, woo, one of my big childhood moments.
Yeah.
I loved them. Plus their face paint was super cool.
They were like Jim and the Holograms.
Except like in dominatrix straps.
Yeah. They have the same feeling.
What do you got at number 4?
Number 4 is going to be February 16th, 1997. Your House is final four-way match. It was the debut of China.
Ah, yes.
You know, it was this idea that this menacing woman lurked in the audience, you know, and then suddenly she was part of the show, and it was like it threw everybody off, and then which then from that moment turned her into, you know, Hunter Hearst Helmsley's ballet, and then she became this, you know, member of D-Generation X, and then till she ultimately left WWE, but I won't talk about that part of her career. But before that, she went ahead and she became a pretty big superstar just on her own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of the most memorable moments I have of China are her interactions with Eddie Guerrero.
Yes,
that is always great. Yeah.
You know, Mamacita.
That was great. Yeah, she was a different kind of talent. That's for sure.
You know, and like she really like she didn't shy away from the idea that a lot of people had questionable ideas of how she looked. I mean, her theme song was literally "Don't treat me like a woman, don't treat me like a man."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's why people treat her, because she was kind of manly for a long time, but then she figured out a way. I guess great surgeons. I don't know how that worked.
Did, yeah. In
but
fact,
there was an ultimate change that was crazy from start to finish. It's like those new memes, you know, how it started.
Yeah. Yes, she did. She had a lot of work done. But oh well, she was good no matter what she looked like. Very enjoyable character. My number 4 is actually a huge moment in wrestling history, but for me, it's kind of, there are a few other things that I think of more fondly, and it is the Montreal Screwjob, November 9th, 1997. Bret Hart's last appearance in a WWE ring for a long, long time. He's been back since. But for those who are not familiar with it, wrestling, spoiler alert, is predetermined. The winners and losers know who they're going to be going in, okay? Yeah. Bret Hart was under the impression that he was not walking out of that match as the loser, that there was going to be some kind of a finish that allowed him to leave WWE, because he was leaving WWE. That was his last match no matter what. He was moving to WCW. And he thought he was going to be able to go out on top as the heroic champion who defended his belt all the way. Well, that's not how it works. In pro wrestling, you do the job. You lose your belt on your way out. That's how it goes. And he refused, as the story goes. And so Vince McMahon, and he concocted this plan that he was going to ring the bell prematurely and turn himself into a major bad guy, Vince McMahon, all through this storyline. It was shocking. It broke that fourth wall of fans knowing that it was fake. I mean, a lot of people know that it's not real, but you know, it kind of made you be like, "Oh, what's going on here?" Yeah. And it led to Shawn Michaels kind of, you know, being this really dislikable bad guy who ended up kind of giving that final rub to Stone Cold Steve Austin. It set in motion the next kind of era. So really memorable. And then poor Bret Hart, he went to WCW, got kicked in the head by Goldberg, and never really recovered. His career was pretty much over after that, in the ring at least.
Yeah.
Too bad. So sad. What do you have at number 3?
Like you really weren't bothered by it.
Do the job on your way out, bro.
He's still getting paid. So mine is actually, it's a lead up to it. You know, for months up to my moment, there was these, you know, during the matches, there would be these little glimpses and clips that would play of these 3 like little girls from what appeared to be from the Kruger movies. And they were chanting these, like, you know, satanic songs while also doing the "Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep" prayer. And it went for months and months and months and months. But then it all went ahead and came to a head in May 21st of 2000 at Judgment Day when He's Here played, and like you heard the revving of the motorcycle, and the Biker Taker was born. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like from there on, you had, you know, year after year of, you know, either demonic Biker Taker or you had Kid Rock. Right. You know what I mean? Like either way.
Yeah.
It was just, he became the American badass, you know, created a whole new move for himself with the last ride. Like he really owned the whole thing. But just remembering how freaky it was to have these little girls being like, he's here. Right. You know,
the Undertaker, you know, moving from the early 90s to the late 90s, WWE had this whole shift of being very cartoonish to being very, like, you know, gritty and realistic, you know. Yeah. And Undertaker was kind of that last holdout. You know, he still kind of had his old character. He did update it a little bit and kind of he'd be like demonic, you know, and he was like sacrificing people on giant T-shaped crosses and stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff to get him in trouble with the Tipper Gores of the world.
Yeah.
But him coming back as the more realistic for him in real life biker looking Undertaker was a huge like shift. Like, oh, okay, we're definitely moved on to this next era, and Undertaker's going to be a big part of it. He's updated his look, he's updated his style, and it was great. I love that gimmick.
Yeah, that was. I still think to this day that was one of the best entrances.
Yes, absolutely. Which brings me to my number 3. Speaking of the Undertaker. My number 3 is the Hell in a Cell Mankind versus Undertaker from June 27th, 1998. If you're not a wrestling fan and you haven't seen this match, do yourself a favor and watch it. Even if you're not a huge wrestling fan, the emotion and the selling of the action in the ring by Jim Ross, who in my estimation is the greatest announcer. Yeah. The greatest announcer in wrestling history. You know, there's a famous part of the match where Undertaker, the Hell in a Cell is a gigantic 20-foot cage. It's all enclosed. There will be a picture on screen in post-production. Undertaker chokeslams Mick Foley, who was in the role of Mankind, off the side of this thing through the announce tables. And Jim Ross jumped out of his chair and he's like, "My God, he's broken him in half. That man has a family." And the way that he was announcing it was just like he'd like lost it. And, you know, not only was that match like hyper violent, like it was even as a fan, it was a little uncomfortable to watch because it's like Mick Foley was just putting himself through all kinds of hell.
Yeah.
And, you know, but there's so many iconic moments, the chokeslam off the side, the backdrop. There's a part where Undertaker backdrops Mankind and he just snaps through the roof of this cage and just crumples onto the mat. He has a tooth in his nostril. Like, it's harsh, but you know, it was an iconic match and it cemented Mick Foley's legacy. I mean, he's in that conversation, you know, forever. Greatest matches of all time. It's right there. I think we probably watched it together.
Yes, for sure. 100%. It might have been the first time I watched a Hell in a Cell.
It was, I think that was only the second Hell in a Cell. The first one, which was a tremendous match too, was Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, I think. And I think
when he put him through the cage?
I don't know.
The tombstone through the cage? That was Triple H in him.
Yeah, that was later. Yeah. Cool.
My number 2 is the turn that nobody saw coming. America's sweetheart turning on all of us. Miss Elizabeth turning into a heel. You know, here was basically the 4th Judd. Everybody loved her. You know, we watched her wedding. We watched her be carried by not only her, Savage, but also by Hulk Hogan. She was a valet for years. Next thing you know, she's hitting people, giving her heels to people so that they can win matches, and allowing Ric Flair to go ahead and take the match from the man that she was supposedly supposed to love. And not only that, but then saying, this man ain't, you know, anything without me, and I basically built his career.
Yep, that was WCW had a habit of just making people turn.
Yeah.
Who you wouldn't necessarily expect. Of course, some of those worked out well, like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. My number 2 has to do with 2 of arguably the greatest in-ring performers of all time, Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. WrestleMania 24, March 30th, 2008. Ric Flair's retirement match, okay, which I think he's probably been back about 43 times since then. Yeah. But the emotion, the lead up to it, Shawn Michaels always wanted to be Ric Flair. He emulated Ric Flair. This match was hyped up, I mean, like to a boiling level. And there was this final part where, you know, Ric Flair barely can get up, and he puts up the dukes and he's like, come on. And Shawn Michaels is across the ring, and he's about to hit him with Sweet Chin Music, which is his super kick finisher. It's like a side kick in the chin. And he says, I'm sorry, I love you. And then he kicks the shit out of him. and he pins him, and that's it. He, you know, gets the bittersweet moment of retiring his hero. And it was just, I mean, manly tears were shed by many. Not me.
No. I'm sure it's
other guys. Not me. All right. Number one. What do you have?
Okay. My number one was the first time that I actually remember watching wrestling. Other than watching, like, you know, if you stayed up too late and then Wow, Women of Wrestling would come on. But
and then you're like, am I watching wrestling or is this porn?
Yeah, you don't know what it was. So I remember watching this one. It was the WrestleMania 6 Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan. The test of strength heard around the world. Literally was the first time I actually remember. We never paid for pay-per-view, so I went over to a friend's house who had it. And, you know, they were lawyers, so they could afford it. Right. And we watched that over there, and I remember just, like, being – not only do I remember it, I remember me and my friend reenacting it.
Oh, yeah. Test of strength.
Yeah. Complete, you know, just the red knuckles and everything, just pretending like you're just like it's the most devastating thing. And not only that, but like you're getting so much of enjoyment out of it, but you're also realizing how ridiculous the whole thing is also.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the same thing that you do when you're trying to call shotgun with your sibling. You know, like if you can take this, I'll let you have the seat.
If you can bend my fingers back, you can have shotgun. Can't do it. Oh my gosh.
And I believe there was even some hair pulling in that.
Yeah, they got a little, there was a little hint with Hogan. There was a moment where he kind of tugged the back of Warrior's hair, which I think was meant to sort of turn the fans' favor to Warrior, because Warrior ended up winning. He unified the world title and the Intercontinental title. And he, you know, a lot of people thought, oh, this is like the passing of the torch, but really Hogan just needed to go film some movies. Hogan ended up, you know, soaking up the spotlight at the end too, holding the ropes open for Warrior. And then Warrior said, no, I'm going to hold them open for you. And so Hogan gets to walk out and like, oh, look how cool I am. And it was, you know, that was Warrior's time on top for at least a year. It wasn't even a year. He won that at WrestleMania. He lost it at Royal Rumble the following year to Sergeant Slaughter, so that when Hogan came back, he could win it from Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7. Unacceptable, but whatever, is what it is. Hogan got his way a lot, which leads me to my number one. I had a handful of wrestlers when I was a kid that were basically like gods walking the earth. And the top two of those were Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. So, of course, my number one moment is WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant. It doesn't get more iconic. I cannot think of one moment in all of wrestling history that is more solidified in the wrestling fan's mind than that shot of Hogan sweeping up Andre, giant, humongous man, hitting the ground. Just like the entire crowd just popped out of their seats. 93,000 people were there. And you just saw them all shoot up out of their seats. Flash bulbs going off like crazy because they used to use, you know, cameras that had flashes.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it hadn't, you know, you never thought that kind of thing could happen. He had tried earlier in the match, didn't happen. And then he hit him with the leg drop, his big finishing move, pinned him, and retained his world championship. You know, if you know the behind the scenes stuff, Andre was on his way out. You know, he had a condition called acromegaly, which made it very difficult for him to get around because of his size. And he was pretty much done with his in-ring career, you know, as a main eventer. He stuck around a little bit after that, but he was pretty much done. And, the big final rub for Hogan was to pin this guy clean in the middle of the ring. There was no chicanery. There was no underhandedness. He body slammed the guy. He pinned him. And that was in 87. And that was like, Hogan is the guy. He's like if there's one pro wrestler that your grandma knows, it's Hulk Hogan. Right. And, there was some question even right up to bell time, whether Andre was going to let Hogan win. Because, winners and losers are predetermined, but Andre was like, I'll think about it. In front of 93,000 people on pay-per-view, you're going to think about it? But who's going to tell him otherwise,
Yeah.
Anyway, I love this little stroll down memory lane. If you like this show, if you think a few more wrestling-themed things could be thrown in here, let us know. We love wrestling, always have. We will be back with you this upcoming Thursday to talk about X-Men First Class on Throwback Thursday. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on social media at We Them Nerds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we'll see you soon. Be good. Be good to each other.
Later.
Bye.